Welcome back to Harvard. Donald Trump's call for Second Amendment people to take action is just the latest in a pattern of statements that have provoked outrage. Now, Bloomberg Politics has poll tested some of the more controversial remarks Trump has made throughout his campaign to find which ones bother voters the most. Well, tonight we take a look at the 5 most concerning statements that Donald Trump has made. For that, I'm joined by the roundtable. John Feary is a Republican strategist and columnist for The Hill. Molly Ball covers politics for The Atlantic. And the Washington Post Jonathan Capehart hosts a new podcast, Cape Up. Is also an MSNBC contributor. Let's start with the fifth most offensive Trump's description. It's of the sacrifices he made for the country. The poll finds that Trump's statement that working hard is a sacrifice bothered 73% of voters. Let's take a look at what he said on ABC 2 weeks ago.
I think I made a lot of sacrifices. I worked very, very hard. I've created thousands and thousands of jobs, tens of thousands of jobs, built great structures. I've had tremendous success. I think
those are sacrifices?
Oh, sure. I think they're sacrifices.
What did you make of that, Molly? Sacrifice. He was comparing himself to the Captain Khan who was killed in action in Iraq.
To the parents, I believe, who have sacrificed. I mean, I think, obviously, to denigrate the sacrifice of the parents of a fallen soldier is offensive on its face, but I think beyond that, plenty of Americans are willing to believe that Donald Trump has contributed something to this country, has worked hard.
But why is sacrifice appropriate?
But
making a living is not a sacrifice.
Maybe he's even given up some dinners out when he had to be at the office. But to compare that to the parents of a fallen soldier, the lack of empathy to not be able to put yourself in those people's shoes and say, that was worse than what I experienced. He doesn't seem to be able to put anybody's experience above his own.
I wish we had a camera on your wince. When he said, anyway, let's take it. You got one coming up here. Next up, the poll finds that 74% of voters say they were bothered by Trump's statement that he may not defend NATO allies if they're attacked. In an interview with the New York Times, Trump was asked, can the members of NATO, including the new members in the Baltics, count on the United States to come to their military if they were attacked by Russia? And here's how Trump answered that question. Have they fulfilled their obligations to us? If they fulfill their obligations to us, the answer is yes. I'm not saying if not.
I mean,
if you don't pay your dues, we're leaving you in the rescue.
Hey, how are you for the bills? Sorry, we can't help you. Look, I think the reason that's a rather specific instance that people say that they're uncomfortable by. But if you look at it in the context of all the things that he has talked about in the foreign policy sphere, especially when it comes to nuclear weapons, and people are focusing now on the fact that the President of the United States is practically a monarch when it comes to using nuclear weapons, that the idea that this person would leave our allies in the lurch, especially NATO allies, is unfathomable. And here's something, Chris, I bet you don't know. I'm going to do this and get you one a little early. The only NATO it's an Article 5 treaty. Article 5 says if one of us is attacked, all of us are attacked. We have to come to that country's defense. It has been invoked one time after September 11th, when the United States was attacked.
Wow.
And NATO came to rally around the United States, and the United States went to war in Afghanistan to avenge the attacks of September 11th.
So we're a beneficiary, at least in that instance.
Yeah.
Well, let's take a look at the next one here. I think we have the next one coming up. This is for you, John Feary. Next up, the poll finds that 75%, 3/4 of us, say they were bothered by Trump's pronouncement that he alone can fix the problems the country faces. Let's listen to that line from Trump's convention speech itself.
Nobody knows the system better than me. Which is why I alone can fix it.
You know, watching him, I get it's funny when you put it all together. The boastfulness and the ridiculous hamming up and the mugging is unbelievable. He's like playing a guy. He's like Daryl Hammond playing Daryl Hammond playing Trump.
He's definitely a caricature. I mean, he's playing a caricature. He's playing a type. I alone can fix it, and it works very well for Saturday Night Live. I am not as offended by this as some others.
Which part?
The I alone can fix it. I mean, and politicians are always making promises that they know they can't keep, and so, you know, in many ways, Trump is playing a politician. And I remember the old campaign theme, "Jet could fix it." You remember that, when he promised that Jet could fix everything? We all know now that politicians really can't fix anything.
But that's a hell of a statement.
Especially alone. But, you know, and I think that maybe that's what offended voters so much, especially Republican voters.
I think politicians can get things done.
Well, listen,
I think Winston Churchill saved Britain in World War II. I think Roosevelt basically did a good job.
Not by themselves,
Yeah,
not in this.
But they can lead.
They can
Well,
lead,
I think
right.
that was some clever spin by the Clinton campaign, right? Because you had Hillary use that line in her speech to paint it as a quasi-dictatorial thing.
Right.
When it didn't necessarily sound that way when Trump said it in the context of someone who knows the system.
I don't think you're a politician. You're burnt out, buddy. How'd you get so burnt out? Let me tell you. I'm not a big W fan because I think he took us into a war he shouldn't have. That's my opinion. But I thought on 9/11, on that Friday, when he stood down there, you know, where it all happened, and he had put his arm around that firefighter, I thought for that brilliant moment, it was right out of Shakespeare. He united this country. We're going to get the guys that did this.
Yeah.
And it wasn't woe is us, it was gee whiz, there was no whining. There was a toughness and a directness to I wish he had stayed on that line. But at that moment, he was a leader. I believe in leaders.
And the key word in that statement is that the fellas who knock these buildings down will hear from us soon, not me.
Yeah,
us.
it wasn't like MacArthur, I will return.
Right.
To use another example of a somewhat flawed leader, but a leader. You're down on leaders. Just a scary job.
I am not down on leaders. I'm not down on the process, but I do think that the voters are down on both.
Well, let's take a look at this. The second most offensive line, this is the runner-up, like a Miss America from Trump, was his criticism of the Khan family, the Gold Star parents of a soldier who did sacrifice his life in Iraq to save his buddies. The poll also finds that 75% of voters were bothered by what Trump said about Mr. Khan's wife, who stood beside her husband as he addressed the Democratic convention last month. Remember, she didn't talk, and here he is, Trump, bashing that.
His wife, if you look at his wife, she was standing there. She had nothing to say. Maybe she wasn't allowed to have anything to say. You tell me, but plenty of people have written that.
Who are these offstage scribes and Pharisees that come up with this religious dicta that he comes up with? Who said she wasn't allowed to talk?
Well, I think Ann Coulter said that on Twitter. I mean,
that's the
weird conspiracy fever swamp stuff goes straight from the internet into Trump's brain, and he believes it, and he alludes to it. Same with the Ted Cruz conspiracy theory. So beyond the fact that, you know, he's saying unfounded things about Islam, about women, he spouts these conspiracy theories that have no basis in fact, and he does it on a regular basis.
If Trump loses by a bigger margin, as the poll suggests, is because of this moment. This is the jump the shark moment for Donald Trump. He has got to apologize, and he's got to get it past him.
Second Amendment, or which one?
On the cons.
Yeah. I agree. To me, that was the showstopper.
It's a showstopper, and it's been devastating to his campaign, and he hasn't recovered.
Because it hits to the heart of the people, by the way, it hits the working class families out there whose kids do fight.
That's right, but Republicans, you know, people who believe in patriotism and the military and the Constitution, they looked at that moment and they were moved by it.
The military in our country is one of the highest, most prestigious classes of Americans there are right now. And when the round table stick away, we're going to have the guy next. I think you all can guess the worst, most offensive thing that Trump said, according to our voters. Anyway, Hardball back into this to give you the worst of the worst. We're back with the roundtable, John, Molly, and Jonathan. Anyway, we've been reviewing the results of a new Bloomberg poll just out, which measures voters' reactions to some of Donald Trump's most controversial remarks. And the poll found that the top statement that voters found most concerning was Trump's mockery of a reporter's physical disability late last year. 83% of voters said they were bothered by this. Let's watch.
Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Maybe that's what I said.
Well, that was pretty direct. That was graphic, and he was imitating a reporter with a physical disability.
I was there. I was at that rally in South Carolina last November, and I think what is so stark about that, on top of just what he was doing, is you can see it. It is so obvious. And so whatever excuses he makes, whatever rationalizations he tries to put forward for, it was just a wacky impression, it had nothing to do with the disability, which is what he said. When you look at the evidence, it's undeniable, and so it becomes very powerful. People know. Everybody has someone in their life who has a disability and can relate to that.
And everybody has in their head the notion of a kid walking down the street, whether it's, you know, it's Down syndrome or anything, and somebody making fun of them. Because there's some smart-ass kid on the street corner. It's something you're told from the time you're 5, don't do that. Every parent tells you, don't make fun of somebody with a problem like that.
Well, this gets to, this is bullying. Everyone recognizes that for what it is. It's bullying. And I think this polled higher than, say, the offense of criticizing the Khan family. It's because everybody knows someone who's been bullied or has been bullied themselves, but only, and this is what Secretary Gates always pointed out when he was Secretary of Defense, only 1%, less than 1% of the American people has someone in the U.S. military who's serving. And so people can empathize with the cons, but they know exactly what's happening.
You're right. Have you been bullied?
Have I been?
When you're a kid?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you remember it?
Oh, absolutely.
John? I think you're so right. Everybody has it's a natural American experience for everybody, almost everybody. And whereas the other is unfortunately been isolated by the unfairness of our society, basically.
First of all, I agree with both of what they said. The third point I would make is that we've become, over the last 20 years, a very caring society with the disability community. We've reached out to them.
That's the goal.
For a lot of various reasons. For him to do that is so completely beyond the pale. It's really unforgivable.
And I wonder why he does it, except for some brain soup, something in him that thinks that's what I want to do. Yeah. I'm going to do this.
Yeah, what motivates any bully, right? I mean, I'm not inside Donald Trump's head, but most bullies are insecure deep down, and so they have to pick on somebody lesser than them.
Let's get back to more basic. They're bad. It's a bad thing to do. It's just wrong. When we return, these three will tell me something I don't know. Be right back.